Starting a fresh chapter in a long-running video game series must be a daunting endeavor for a developer. How do you follow up 20 years of world-building stories with a new setting and cast? It's a tough question that The Legend of Heroes Trails Through Daybreak answers confidently, kicking off an exciting new arc that both newcomers and veterans can enjoy. With an updated combat system that fuses turn-based battles with some new real-time elements, an engaging story, and a charming cast of characters, Trails Through Daybreak shines as another great RPG in a year full of them. Daybreak follows a mercenary named Van Arkwright who finds himself on a grand adventure that's noticeably darker in tone than previous Trails arcs. He takes on the dirty jobs local law enforcement aren't able to handle, and sometimes even work from underground organizations. That's a welcome change from the series' past protagonists who've tended to be a bit unrealistically altruistic.
Oh, I guess I should have put out something to eat with the tea.
The story itself effortlessly weaves topical themes into your actions, with shadowy figures taking advantage of anti-immigrant sentiment to gain power and the meteoric rise of a new mafia group threatening the status quo of the underground world.
Word to the wise, don't try to blackmail someone higher up on the food chain.
These themes aren't entirely apparent early on in Van's journey, but he eventually starts to realize just how much influence the different factions of this world have, making Daybreak an engrossing political drama the deeper you go.
You have outlived your usefulness.
Its lovable, tight-knit cast of main characters helps set the stage too. One standout is a young girl named Fairy, who Van takes in after she is exiled from her village and slowly grows to accept her teammates as her second family. Another favorite is the fun Grimcat. Her strong-willed personality amusingly contrasts with her role as the comic relief. She's a terrible liar and often slips up when trying to talk her way out of a situation, which is not something you'd expect out of a supposedly slick trickster.
I'm Grimcat! You got a problem with that?
It's also great that Daybreak's comparatively smaller cast means each character gets more attention throughout the story and has room to grow.
Snap out of it, Judith! You aren't allowed to die out here!
That's something the Cold Steel arc in particular had trouble handling as its cast ballooned. This is a great jumping in point for the Trails series, free from the shackles of having to directly connect to previous games, but Daybreak does also treat longtime fans by incorporating things when it suits the story. Veterans will catch a few character cameos from the previous arcs in supporting roles as well, but they're smartly placed to not steal the spotlight or alienate newcomers. It's a fantastic way to keep this universe interconnected while creating a blank slate to work with. When you're not tied up in the political intrigue of the main story, you'll be completing various side quests that can earn you points towards Van's Law, Gray, or Chaos stats. These are framed as a sort of morality system, but they operate more similarly to the way Persona handles its social stats. Certain side quests give out predetermined values for these stats, and you can see which will increase before accepting them. However, they're all worth completing, as having a higher level in one alignment doesn't lock out the benefits from the others. This approach offers a greater degree of freedom since you won't feel like you're being railroaded into one single morality path. For example, some quests let you decide how they end, providing extra points to a certain alignment based on your choice. But because there's no pressure to follow a strict path like in some other games, you can happily make the choices you truly think are right. Later on, depending on how high Van's morality is in certain alignments, you can choose to team up with certain factions. While picking any given faction doesn't change the overall story, some have stronger playable characters that can make the enemy encounters and bosses a cakewalk while you have access to them. Choosing certain factions over others also leads to unique character interactions, which makes for some good replayability for subsequent playthroughs. One of the biggest gameplay changes in Daybreak is its battle system, which is now a hybrid between real-time and turn-based combat. Unfortunately, these real-time elements are very rudimentary. Normal hits and charged attacks that stun enemies are all you can do besides dodging. More options aren't introduced throughout the campaign, so it gets incredibly repetitive across a 50-plus hour RPG. However, the turn-based combat picks up the slack thanks to some noticeable improvements over its predecessors. Loading screens are gone outside of boss battles, so fights in Daybreak transition seamlessly from the field to battle. It's so much smoother and more satisfying now that the party isn't magically whisked away to a separate dimension just for battles. This battle system also sees the return of the series' timeline mechanic, where bonuses land in random spots. The timeline aspect is relatively unchanged, but this combat staple is just as great as ever. It makes for some incredibly engaging battles since it's important to take advantage of where bonuses fall in the action order whenever you can, especially during big fights. Another welcome change is that characters are no longer required to use up their turn to simply move around the battlefield and can instead roam freely within a certain movement range. While moving your party into advantageous positions before attacking isn't exactly a new RPG concept, this tweak opens up a whole new aspect of tactical gameplay when combined with Trails' already excellent combat mechanics. For example, Van's Stun Slash has the Impede effect, which can disrupt enemies in the middle of casting spells, but it also does more damage when he hits an enemy from their flank rather than the front or back. Those added positioning decisions help some attacks stay useful even when their primary effects don't apply in certain situations, which wasn't always the case in previous Trails games since moving around counted as its own action. The customization system also offers plenty of flexibility in how you build out each character with different gems, letting you stay top level or dive as deep into complex builds as you want. Daybreak introduces shard skills, which are passive buffs influenced by where you equip a gem. For instance, placing a red gem in the weapon line has a chance of adding fire damage, while putting it in the shield line instead boosts your resistance to burn. Knowing how to utilize these buffs can be very fun, and sometimes the difference between winning and losing during late game boss battles and when playing on higher difficulties.
And then kaboom!
Activating more powerful shard skills requires meticulous gem placement, and it's easy to lose track of time optimizing different combinations.
You're not getting away.
Bonding events called connections make a return in Daybreak, letting your protagonist casually hang out with other characters during their free time, which is always a lot of fun, especially for returning fans. Not only are these bonding moments entertaining and well written, the Trails series is able to use its extensive history to incorporate past events for even more impressive world building, which is something that games with similar features can't go nearly as in-depth on. However, other features from past entries are conspicuously gone. Mini-games in previous Trails RPGs were often entertaining distractions, such as the card games Vantage Masters and Blade. But those aren't in Daybreak at all, and there's nothing new to fill the void they've left between missions when looking for a change of pace. Cooking has also been drastically limited, with each party member now only able to cook a few select dishes rather than having their strengths and weaknesses within the full menu. Fishing is missing too, which is surprising given it had previously been included in every single mainline Trails game. That's not to say that Daybreak is lacking in content, as there's still an enormous amount of stuff to do and see between all of the side quests and the morality system. But the absence of these traditional Trail staples does make Daybreak just a little bit less charming. And while it can't make up for everything, Daybreak's soundtrack is excellent. It incorporates the rocking guitars and melodic piano that the series is known for. The opening theme's a bit more laid back compared to past games, but that's a fitting reflection of Van's personality. As always, the battle themes are explosive and designed to get you in the mood to fight, and the lively tunes in the metro areas make exploration fun. The Legend of Heroes Trails Through Daybreak is an exciting new start for the series. With an awesome new cast of characters joined by a handful of familiar faces, it's a welcoming point to jump in fresh while also rewarding veteran players for returning. Daybreak's updated hybrid battle system still has a few kinks to work out with its real-time elements, but enhanced movement options and other impressive tweaks make the turn-based aspects better than ever. Wrap that up in an engaging story full of political drama and a compelling new setting, and Daybreak is exactly what the Trails series needed to reach new heights. For more, check out our reviews of Shin Megami Tensei 5 Vengeance or Wuthering Waves, and for everything else, stick with IGN.